everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am your host, Dr. Roberta Westbrook, and we're here at the Houston SPCA, the campus for all animals. And I'm so glad you joined us. We have a very important topic for you today. As we move into the hotter months of the year, we want to start our conversations about protecting your pets against heat stroke and illness and injury related to being too hot. As you guys know, we are in a very hot environment, and we're all going to be wanting to get outside, get our pets outside, and enjoy the outdoors this summer. We want to make sure that everybody stays safe. So start thinking about your questions related to heat stroke and keeping your pets cool this summer. And while you're thinking of those questions, I do want to take a moment and introduce you to one of our wonderful Houston SPCA pets that's looking for her forever home. One of our pets today is Jade. Jade is an adult female. She's approximately 5 years old. Jade has a wonderful heart. She's very active, very sweet. And Jade, as a matter of fact, was treated for a disease called heartworm disease. Jade had heartworm disease, but she is doing wonderful. She has been treated. She is back to her healthy self, and now she is looking for a forever home. So she would make a great family dog. She's very active, very sweet, and she's just waiting for you to come visit her. So come on down this weekend. Consider bringing your family and your friends. Come to our adoption center. Where there's no appointment necessary. You can browse all the dogs, cats, puppies, and kittens that we have available for adoption, and you can consider taking one of those guys home with you. So let's start our topic, because again, I want to make sure that you guys are well prepared for the upcoming heat. That's why we're outside. It's a beautiful day today. The sun is shining. That means more of you guys are going to be outside walking your pets, and we want to make sure you stay safe. So let's talk about what heat stroke is. I just want to give you a little bit of background. So when we say heat stroke, what we're talking about is your pet having an elevated body temperature in a way in which he or she cannot cool themselves off. So we want our dogs to be able to cool themselves off when they get into very hot environments. But sometimes the environmental temperature is too high for them to cool themselves off in a timely fashion. So the body temperature just begins to rise and rise and rise, and the pet cannot just cool him or herself off quick enough. That causes the body temperature to rise. And you might say, well, what's an abnormal body temperature? Anything over about 103 degrees in our dogs would be considered abnormal. In cats, it's about 103.5. Anything above that is probably too hot. We get in a real danger zone when those body temperatures are 106 and 107. So when those body temperatures are 106 and 107, we can wind up having potentially life-threatening and fatal injury and illness to the pets. So that's sort of the background of heat stroke in our pets. Do you have any questions about heat stroke?
Yes. So my dog pants a lot during normal walks. How can I tell the difference?
Yes, that's a great question. If your dog is panting during normal walks, that's normal. So panting is a way for your dog to cool herself off. We want them to be able to pant. That is a way that they can expel heat from the body. However, excessive panting can be a sign of early heat stroke. So excessive panting would be, your dog's normal panting, where the tongue is relaxed, the mouth is open. But there is a point at which that panting can seem excessive or almost labored breathing. So the tongue hangs further out of the mouth. Sometimes the mucous membranes, which were pink, begin to look red, and your dog may look more exhausted. They may start to lose a little bit of their energy. They may start to look like they're feeling tired and wanting to slow down. If you notice that your pet is wanting to slow down so that they can cool themselves off, this might be a clue that you should take it a little bit easy, get into some shade as soon as possible.
And what are the steps that we can do if our pet is in heat stroke?
So take some appropriate steps to try to get them cool as soon as possible. One, if you're noticing that they're panting really heavily, the tongue is hanging far out of the mouth, maybe it's curved up a little bit, maybe they are drooling and they're slowing down, take a break. It's okay to take a break. Find some shade, sit down, and give your dog a break so that they don't continue to generate heat by running and walking. You want their muscles to calm down. If you have access to water, the second thing you need to do is get your pet some water. So what that means is maybe carrying even a collapsible water bowl. That's possible. You can get those at your local pet store that you can carry with you. A collapsible water bowl or finding a water fountain on the trail that you're walking would be appropriate. Drinking cool water is one of the best ways to get your dog to cool his body or her body temperature down. Drinking cool water and staying in the shade and just taking it easy. If you feel like your pet is having severe heat stroke, meaning they're not wanting to get up, maybe they're starting to vomit or they're becoming unresponsive, this would be an emergency, and I would try to get your pet to a veterinary hospital right away.
Is it possible to cool the dog down too fast? Like, do we pour some ice water on it?
Yes. So if you're out in the park, it's going to be hard to find a way to cool your pet down. But sometimes when people think that their pet is in the middle of heat stroke, they want to drop the body temperature really quickly, and that can be sometimes just as dangerous. So in order to cool the body temperature down slowly, what you can do is take a cool towel and begin to wipe your pet down, particularly on the non-haired areas. So that would be on the inside of the ears, maybe the belly and the inside of the thighs. Those are areas that don't have a lot of hair that you can wipe down with a cool towel and drop the body temperature very slowly, as opposed to putting your pet in, a bucket or a tub of ice. Don't do that. Sometimes what ice will do is it will cause the blood vessels to constrict, and that can cause different types of injury. So you want to cool the body temperature down gradually.
And I heard there's a myth that if you put alcohol on the paws, sometimes works better than water to put them down.
Alcohol on the foot pads is controversial, somewhat for the same reason. So alcohol, when it evaporates, does cool the skin. But again, another thing that it can do is actually constrict the blood vessels on the paws and on the skin. And so we don't want to cause a different type of vascular injury because of that while we're trying to cool the pet down. So it's safer to just use a cool towel in those non-haired areas and not use alcohol in large amounts on the foot pads.
And what are the treatments that the vet can do once we get him into the hospital?
When your pet comes into the hospital, your veterinarian is going to start right away by just doing a basic physical exam and taking your pet's body temperature. They will oftentimes start by putting in intravenous catheters so that we can get fluids into your pet. But if your pet is able to, again, one of the best ways to lower the body temperature safely is to get your pet to drink cold or cool water. Getting that body temperature down through the gastrointestinal tract can be very helpful. If your pet is in a critical condition where we don't want to give them anything by mouth, we typically will rely on fluid therapy and external cooling with a fan. For example, fans are a great idea. Putting your dog in the car with air conditioning, that's a great idea. And wiping your pet down with a cool towel.
And what are the different situations that can lead to heat stroke?
So what can lead to heat stroke? Typically, it is being outside on a very, very hot day and not having ability to have your pet cool him or herself. So when the temperatures reach, 75, 80 degrees and higher, it can become quite hot outside, particularly if you're not exercising in a shaded area. So being outside without any shade and without any access to water, that can be dangerous. Also, having your pet in the car with no air conditioning, with the windows up, and with no circulation. These are kind of perfect conditions where heat stroke could occur. We always want to make sure there's adequate ventilation and that there's access to water and shade.
And are there certain breeds that are more at risk for heat stroke?
Yes, those of you who love the brachycephalic breeds are those breeds that have a short muzzle. So those would be dogs like bulldogs, pugs, shih tzus, the Japanese chin and the Pekingese, all these dogs that have very short compressed faces, or if you, even in cats, if you're thinking about Himalayan cats, these cats have very short muzzles, and it doesn't allow for airflow to get through and it doesn't allow for cooling to occur as easily. And so they're inhaling hot air that isn't cooled. And so this can contribute to heat stroke. And so you want to make sure that if you have one of those breeds that you're taking extra precautions, that you're only going out during the early morning or late evening when the sun is not at its highest. You want to make sure that you're taking shorter walks instead of going on maybe miles long walks. And you want to make sure that there's always access to water.
Good. And somebody is asking if it's true that the sidewalk or asphalt can burn my pet's paws.
Oh, that's a great question. So if you are walking along hot concrete, we've all made the mistake of accidentally touching hot concrete, and you know how hot it can get. You've felt it maybe through your bare feet, and it certainly can burn your pet's paw pads. So the bottom of your pet's paw pads, it's callous skin there, and it's pretty tough. It can withstand a lot, but heat can actually cause them to peel. They can burn and they can begin to peel off, and that can cause raw surface to the paw pads, and it can be extremely painful. So you want to make sure, again, that if possible, you're walking on concrete that's shaded so that it's not as hot, but you can also consider buying little boots to put on your pet's paws if they're going to be walking outside on the concrete to protect them from thermal injury.
Another question is, should I shave my dog to keep them cooler in the summer?
Oh, that's a great question. Shaving your dog. So we think that shaving dogs might be helpful in the summertime, but sometimes what that does, it exposes the naked skin to the sun more directly. So sometimes the hair coat can actually prevent that sun from directly penetrating the skin, and it can protect them from direct thermal injury. And so I don't necessarily recommend shaving your dog in the summer just to prevent heat stroke. I think it's better just to make sure that you're taking the proper precautions by not going out for long periods of time when the sun is at its greatest without proper ventilation.
And then somebody wants to know a little bit about pool safety. Do all dogs are dogs automatically good swimmers, or what can I do to make sure my pet is safe, even though we have a pool in the backyard?
What a great question. We're going to be swimming. I can't wait to have some pool parties this summer, and your dogs may be included in that. Always make sure that your pets around the pool are supervised, because we don't know how they're going to act in the water if they've never been in the water before to where they needed to swim. So being in a pool where they're not able to touch the bottom of the pool can create panic in some dogs. And so they may be able to keep themselves afloat above water, but some dogs may panic, and in the panic, they may start to drink or have more water go down the oral cavity and the nasal cavity, and that can be dangerous. So not every dog handles themselves well in water. Always keep them under supervision. Always make sure that if possible, you're in there with them and you show them how to get out of the water if they need to, and that means getting to the stairs if they have to.
And then does the chemicals in the water hurt my pets, or is it kind of like us, we just wash it off?
Yes, chemicals in the water are certainly a concern. So you don't want your pets to continually drink pool water. And you also want to make sure that if your pets are getting in the pool frequently, that you make an effort to bathe them afterwards and dry them very thoroughly. Sometimes, particularly when water gets in the ear canals, that's something that can create chronic ear infections when the ear canals have water in them. And that's not dried out. So you want to make sure if your pet loves the water, that they are bathed afterwards and that their ears are clean and dried out.
And another question is, are hotspots actually related to heat? Hotspots?
Oh, that's a great question. Are hotspots actually related to heat? And yes, in a way. So what happens is when dogs have very thick hair coats, it doesn't allow circulation. And so what can happen is it traps dirt and heat really close to the skin, and it's a great, and moisture close to the skin. It's a really great place for bacteria to grow. And hot spots are what they are little patches of bacterial skin infection. They become very itchy to the pet, and they can happen very quickly in a matter of days. It can be a small spot and then it grows. And again, this happens because of heat that gets trapped under oftentimes thick hair coats, and it traps dirt, debris, moisture, bacteria, and it can cause superficial skin infection that the dogs then want to lick and chew and become very sensitive to. The prognosis is good. These are very easily treated with antibiotics, but certainly it can be more common in hot environments.
dogs ever drink too much water when they're overheating?
So they typically are good about limiting themselves. So I wouldn't be too concerned about your dog drinking too much water. Now, if you notice that your pet is becoming overheated and they're just not stopping, and it seems like they're really drinking a lot of water too fast, you could certainly kind of give them a break by taking the bowl away for a minute or two and then giving it back to them. Certainly drinking a lot of water fast might cause GI upset. In general, there's not a lot of health risk related to that. You just want them to slow down so that it doesn't cause GI upset drinking too much too fast.
And do black dogs like Jade, attract more heat, kind of like the clothes that we wear?
Sure. They certainly can have higher surface body temperatures, and so that's something to be aware of as well. Again, just take the proper precautions for all dogs, really, just to be in the shade, give them access to ventilation and access to water.
Somebody asked, my cat is inside and outdoors. Do cats also get overheated?
Yes, they absolutely can get overheated. So it's less common for cats to pant. So oftentimes they can pant when they get overheated, but if your cat is panting, I would probably be fairly concerned about that and make sure that they get in and get cooled pretty quickly. So we don't like to see panting cats. They are trying to cool themselves off, but certainly they can succumb to heat stroke as well. Cats typically are going to have a greater risk to heat stroke if they're in the car, in an unventilated area. We typically aren't taking our cats on miles-long runs, so we typically don't see cats suffering from heat stroke from being on walks. But if they're in not very well ventilated housing units, that's typically when we see heat stroke for cats.
Someone's asking, what happens if they see a dog in a hot car? What can they do, or how can they help?
Yeah, so if you see a dog in a hot car, it's really not recommended that you take it upon yourself to break the window to rescue the dog. This would be a time where you want, if it's in front of a business, where you contact an employee of the business so that they can contact the right authorities. This may be the local animal control. This can be the police who can get you in contact with the animal control and rescue organizations like the Houston SPCA, who can send trained investigators out to get warrants to be able to get those dogs out of the car. But you should not take it upon yourself to try to break the window or unjam the lock of the door to rescue the dog. Please contact the proper authorities to do so. Contact the owner of the business first, or you can contact the Houston SPCA 713-869-7722. We can get that to our ambulance drivers, our investigators, and we can send trained people out to help that dog right away.
And someone's wondering, with my dog, how do I get my dog used to wearing the foot paddeds to protect them from the asphalt?
Yes, so not every dog wants to have the booties on, and sometimes it's quite comical to see them walk for the first time with that. So just give it its time. It's just time and exposure to that. So you may want to try it at home first in your backyard or in your own driveway and see how they tolerate the booties. There's also different types. So, there's some that may be more comfortable than others. Trying those booties on your dog and seeing what works might be best to do at home first. But then also, if your dog doesn't tolerate it, that's okay. What you should do is just make sure you're timing your walks in a way that you're not going out when the sun is at its greatest. Another thing that you can do to test the concrete, take your hand and put your hand on the concrete. If you cannot hold your hand on the concrete for longer than 5 seconds, then it's too hot for your pets. This may not be a good time to take your pets out for a walk.
And then one last question. Is there any laws or regulations for dogs that are outside of a home? That are kept outside?
So there is an act called the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act. And the Safe Outdoor Dog Act requires that we provide proper food, water, and shelter for our pets that are living outside. So if you have a pet, a dog that lives outside in your backyard, please make sure that you have purchased or acquired a proper housing unit so that your pet can get out of the elements when necessary. So that means protection from the heat and protection from the cold. Please make sure that they have access to food and water, and that they're not tethered in a way. They're not tethered in a way that they cannot access the shelter or access the food and water bowls in your yard. Well, that's a lot of information. We have a short period of time, but we want to give you as much information as possible to keep your pets healthy this summer. Please join us every Friday for the Pet Podcast for more information about how to take great care of your pets and keep them happy and healthy for a long time. If you're looking for a pet to join your family, please come on down to our campus for all animals at the Houston SPCA, and we'd be happy to see you. We will see you next week. Thank you for joining us. Come by and visit Jade.